阿弥妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。南無妙蓮華経。道上下。アンボライ。一心おるらい。十法一切 Ujorai. Wholeheartedly we bow to you in the place of practice, the place of spiritual awakening, to the teacher who shows us great favor, Shakyamuni Buddha. Shokoge. The incense of precepts, meditation, liberation, knowledge, and vision. Directions at this moment and always spreads everywhere. May this fragrance also in the following way spread everywhere, over myself and others, the fivefold body of the Dharma. Okay. most humbly reflect on the life of Siddhartha, the Prince King Suddhodana of Kapilavastu in central India, who observed aging, sickness, death, and that all conditioned things are impermanent, and who then sought for the wondrous goal of emancipation. Then one day he left his home when he was 19. From that time he made great efforts in seeking the way by visiting spiritual sages and taking up ascetic practices for 12 years. However, these methods could not resolve the problem of impermanence and suffering. Upon reconsidering, he sat on the Vajradharma throne under the Bodhi tree in Uruvela near Bodh Gaya, by the bank of the Naranja River to meditate and enter samadhi. This happened when he was 30 years old. Although King Mara used various forms of temptation and intimidation to hinder his efforts, he was able to overcome them all. He considered the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and dependent origination, both backwards and forwards. On the dawn of December 8th, at the first light of the morning star, he attained complete, perfect awakening. How can we praise him enough? How can we praise him enough? Honor be to the eternal Buddha Shakyamuni, our original teacher, who attained awakening in the remotest past. Namyo Renge Kyo. Kanjo. Please turn to page 5. Honor be to the great mandala, the perfect circle of all honorable ones revealed by our founder Nichiren Shonin. Honor be to the eternal Buddha Shakyamuni, our original teacher, the Lord of the Dharma, our great benefactor who attained enlightenment in the remotest past. Honor be to the Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the wonderful Dharma, the teaching of equality to great wisdom, the one vehicle. Honor be to our founder, the great Bodhisattva Nichiren Shonin, dispatched by our original Buddha. Honor be to Renge Ajari Nichiji Shonin, the first overseas missionary. Honor be to the protective deities of the Dharma. We honor all of you. May you come to this consecrated place out of your compassion towards us. See us with the light of your wisdom and accept our offering of chanting the sutra and Honor Aikoge. Please turn to page 9. The most profound and wonderful teaching is presented in this sutra. This sutra is difficult to meet even once in thousands and millions of aeons. Now we have been able to see, hear, receive, and keep this sutra. May we understand the most excellent teaching of the Tathagata. The most excellent teaching of the great vehicle is very difficult for us to understand. We shall be able to approach enlightenment when we see, hear, or touch this sutra. Expounded is the Buddha's wisdom. Expounded is the Buddha's truth. The letters composing this sutra are the Buddha's manifestation. Just as perfume is caught by something put nearby, so shall we be richly benefited by this sutra, even when we are not aware of being so benefited, because infinite merits are accumulated in this sutra. We can expiate our past transgressions, do good deeds, and attain Buddhahood by the merits of this sutra. It does not matter whether we are wise or not, or whether we believe the sutra or slander it. This sutra is the most wonderful and most excellent, taught by the Buddhas of the past, present, and future. May we meet and receive it.
birth after birth, world after world.
法蓮華経、法面本来に、一世三十三枚安
常に記号者へおつ上空地へ人間無料法地へ万下何十歳上万百死仏上空の地上位者が仏道心万百千万億無種小仏人上小仏無料道有名小人上小空万上中地上を地上説理集難下されおつご十上空地来集中円円集中理由公園本上無種方便臨上集上領理上略上理者が到来方便意見原仏会流則在仏如来意見東大人の無料無下力無償理天上下達三枚金入無才道十二歳以上を在仏如来の十分別行政小本寺無難結果終身在仏修行本寺無料無縁以上無修上有し在仏空修節上位者が無償長寿大一経由難下死後に仏上仏内の空人上理想上理上上で上上で上上で大ので力ので差ので縁ので縁ので可ので法ので空教と教義上ので上ので上ので大ので力ので差ので縁ので縁ので可ので法ので空教と教義上ので上ので上ので大ので力ので差ので縁ので縁ので可ので法の
Please turn to page 35.法輪華経、如来十両本来十六、自我特仏来
小教小公衆無料約千万億さや早期調整公共研究収録修上領入法仏道未来無料公理道修上公弁言明万に実空熱量上重視説法化上重小心中力量天道修上水本に空見修見が熱量航空用者類現代霊伝道理上活動心中上理心空識的入難理心欲念仏着信用地が九州総空出場中戦が自己修行東大シーズメスリオーペン力公権無滅無滅両国修行無教信用者が部を意注意説無教法 do an non ten ten do ju man non len so do gaku ju ju o so on o ju ka de ka ju do do ju gaku so ten ju do ga ju ji gaku man da ra te san ju ju dai ju da do do ku ki ju ten jo den lu ju so ju no no de ju man de so dai ju do mi gaku go en en da so hi go mu mon san do myo so ju ju do ju wa ji ji sha so kai ten da shin dai shi ni se o wa tu ji shi shu se ju 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 mu do ku nai ten ju sha ni se ju ju nan shi da shi yo de go so mu do ju no mu shu go ku shu go so go yo go ku ji sha mo go shi so ni go ran yo yo jin ju go no go no ni sen no ben ni yo shi go ju dai ni gon shi lu no se go mo kai ku ri se ju ju so ku den sai ni gon ju den do ju dai ni gon ju ji go en na go ni so go shi sen ho ju yaku go yoku na o go ju da do ki ju do do ju do do ji do so ka do ki se ju ju do ai ji sa de ni da do ju do oku ju do do
The Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma, Chapter 21, The Supernatural Powers of the Tathagata. The Buddhas, the world saviors, have great
supernatural powers. They display their immeasurable supernatural powers in order to cause all living beings to rejoice. Practice of their tongues reach the heaven above, and innumerable rays of light are emitted from their bodies. For those who are seeking the enlightenment of the Buddha do these things therein to be seen. The sound of talking of the Buddha, the sound of temperature snapping, reverberate over the world of the 10 quarters and the ground of those worlds traced in the 6 ways. The Buddhas joyfully display their immeasurable supernatural powers, because the Bodhisattvas from underground vow to keep this sutra after my extinction. Even if I praise for innumerable kalpas, the keeper of this sutra, to whom it is to be transmitted, I cannot praise him highly enough. His merits are as limitless, as infinite, as boundless as the skies of the worlds of the 10 quarters. Anyone who keeps this sutra will be able to see me. He also will be able to see many treasures. Buddha, the Buddhas of my replicas, and the Bodhisattvas whom I have taught today. Anyone who keeps this sutra will be able to cause me to rejoice. He also will be able to bring joy to the Buddhas of my replicas, and also to many treasures. Buddha who once passed away, he also will be able to see the on the meanings of the teachings and the names and words of the sutra. Their eloquence will be as boundless as the fountain, clear as the wind in the sky. Anyone who understands why the Buddha's expounding the sutra to know the position of the sutra in the series of sutras and to expound it after my extinction. Immortal to its true meaning will be able to eliminate the darkness of non-living beings of the world where he walks about, just as the light of the sun and the moon eliminates all the darkness. He will be able to cause innumerable bodhisattvas to dwell finally in the one vehicle. Therefore, the man of wisdom who gives the benefits of these merits to his sutra after my extinction will be able to attain the enlightenment of the Buddha heavenly and doubtlessly.
For contemplation before chanting Yoda Moku, we have Nichiren Shonen's instructions entitled Hopai Sho, or True Purpose of the Buddha's Birth. In the unquantifiable distant past, 500 kalpas ago, Shakyamuni Buddha attained the nominal lotus flower of the wonderful lotus flower of the wonderful Dharma and declared his awakening throughout successive ages. He revealed the authentic doctrine of realization of the truth and the one who realizes it. In this age, he was again born in Madhgaha in central India, his lotus flower. However, the people had no capacity for it, and the time was not yet suitable. That is why he divided the Lotus Sutra of the one Dharma into three by expounding the expedient Dharma of the three vehicles according to their inclinations for 40-something years in order to draw them in. During this time, people's natures were all quite different. That's why he cultivated different kinds of plants and flowers, but never offered the lotus flower of the wonderful Dharma. That is why the Sutra of Innumerable Meanings says, after sitting upright for 6 years under the Bodhi tree, at the place of the way, I could attain supreme awakening. And after more than 40 years, the truth has not yet been revealed. At the time of the expounding of the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha discarded the expedient teachings of the four tastes and the three doctrinal teachings and other Hinayana teachings. He revealed the one great vehicle of the Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma. When he opened the three flowers to show the lotus flower of the wonderful Dharma, the people of expedient teachings of the four tastes and the three doctrinal teachings received the lotus flower of the abode of aspiration, the first of the 10 abodes. Finally, he revealed the lotus flower of opening the near and revealing the far, so that they could go on to attain the fruition of the second, third, and 10th of the abodes, and ultimately proceed onward to the preliminary awakening and the supreme and subtle awakening. Please place your hands in Gasho. Now we will chant. Yodaimoku Anyo Orengekyo. The lay leaders will direct you to offer incense offering. 66. Yeah, 64. 64. Okay. The difficulty of retaining the sutra. Jikyo nanji nyaku sanji gasoku kangi jokutu yaku nen yoseki nen jokutu jodan seisoku yu myo seisoku joken senyo ikai do tsudasha soichi toku mujo buju do no orai se joku ichi do den genbu shi jujun den jujun metu do go no keko ite no ten men ten shi ten no ite no shu setsu isai ten I O O. Please turn to page 68, Golden Chain. Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and to protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that what I do now depends on my happiness and misery. May every link in Lord Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Today, in our echo, our prayer, we remember Shakyamuni Buddha, who arrived here in this world, this Saha world. There was a human being, he was not a god. He was a god, and we couldn't achieve it ourselves. Please turn to the echo in your pamphlet and read along while I read aloud. Today at this temple, we celebrate the attainment of awakening by Shakyamuni Buddha, our most venerable teacher, decorating the altar, offering incense flowers, candlelight, tea, sweets, and food. As Buddha's children with pure faith, we gather at the practice hall of the perfect and the sudden Mahayana teaching. In the right way, we show our deep respect. We respectfully follow the wonderful practice. In all these ways, we do all we can to celebrate this momentous occasion in the life of the Buddha. We most humbly consider the accumulation of the merit of the true practice of the Bodhisattva that fills the Dharma realms of the 10 directions. The accumulated virtue of the Buddha stages fruition of awakening spreads over all like the heaven of the highest truth. The compassionate vow of I am always thinking never stops. The loving thought of how shall I cause all living beings is without bias. Observing the time and discerning the capacity, his transformations are limitless. It is the perfect doctrine of revelation of the origin of the lifespan. Covering up his light and hiding his virtue in order to accord with the capacity of sentient beings, he sat upright for 12 years. He demonstrated the principle of returning the favors he had received from his teachers that enabled him to become a holy monk by guiding and assisting the ordinary monks who became his disciples. He considered the 5 periods and the 8 teachings that would lead people to mature harvest of Buddhahood. In addition to that, he laid the great groundwork of sowing the seed of the Odaimoku for the latter age. We cannot imagine the greatness of his favor and the enormity of his virtue. We have determined to protect and uphold the true Dharma without sparing our lives. We offer that determination as a millionth of our requital of that favor. Sacred phrase, that old vow of mine has now been fulfilled. First benefit of, I once vowed that I would cause all living beings to become exactly as I am. Wonderful, your light illuminated the worlds of the 10 quarters. I once made offerings to you. Now I have come to see you again. We appreciate your great compassion and loving kindness. Today we also remember those in sickness and distress. We remember all the victims of terrorism throughout the world. We remember all victims of fires, winds, floods, and other natural disasters throughout the world. We remember Frank Hardaway and James Conklin, Martin Hardaway, Louis Dingler. We remember the people of Puerto Rico, Stacy Perdue, Lindsay, Anita Smarsky, I pronounced that incorrectly, Kim Williams, Janet Williams, Richard Weinman, Misako Brainerd, Melissa Bowman, Michael D. Rishi, Manny Figueroa, and Chavi. And Bonnie Howers and Marjorie Howers, Gail Bull, J. Anna King, and Annie McAndrew, Laureen, Joshin Cushman, Brutus Todd, Marissa and Renee Hardaway, Melissa and Madeline Schoaf, Dennis Sullivan, Ashley and Sean Waldron, Monica Shim, Megan Shim, Clarence Shim, Nadine Morsch, David Normandin, Dirk Patton, Damien Reddick, Wendy Prevost, Jason Wellman, David and Yasuko Spence, Michael Mahar, Richard and Lynn Bigelow, and George Sullivan. We also remember those who have passed in memoriam. We remember Amy and Maria Valentin, CP and Augustus Kroll, Albert Rivas and Yolanda Rivas, Elaine and Joe Winter, Terry Paquin, Bill Meir Sensei, Harp Sensei, Jack Parker, Kazuko Jordan, Errol Scott, Cheryl Cushman, Aunt Barbara, Wayne, Ronnie Yogetsu Selden, Dennis Sullivan, members of the Show family, members of the Thibault family, members of the Krasnowski family, members of the Benuski family, Michael Maffei, Linda Williams, Charles Bull, Helen Lawson, Dr. Peter Boehm, Maria Rajo, Donald Gregory, Tico, Josephine and Fructuoso Abad, Shay, Roca, Ali, Uso, Scoop, Ming Chi, Stella Hitchcock, Rex, Eve, and Star, Janice Goudreau, Zen Master Ryokan Daiku, Morrissey family, the Bigelow family, the Sparks and Winter families, the Kroll family and the Craning family, Cedar and Kobayashi family, the Jordan family, mother of Juanita Young, Jean Knopp, Deidre Hossick, Nicole O'Brien, as well as all those who have passed who have no one to pray for them. They have accumulated by this offering be distributed among all living beings, and may we and all other living beings attain the enlightenment of the Buddha. And may the Dharma realm be equally benefited. Amen. Chido, the four initiating vows. I will cause all living beings to cross the ocean of birth and death if they have not yet done so. I will cause them to emancipate themselves from suffering if they have not yet done so. I will cause them to have peace of mind if they have not yet done so. I will cause them to attain nirvana if they have not yet done so. With this body, until I attain Buddhahood, I shall maintain my faith in the Lotus Sutra. Yo renge yo, Namu yo renge yo, Namu yo renge yo. Om Santi. Eternal Buddha Shakyamuni, our original teacher, who attained enlightenment in the remotest past, honor be to the Sutra, the lotus flower of the wonderful Dharma, the teaching of equality, the great wisdom, the one vehicle. Original teacher, superior practice, our founder, the great Bodhisattva Nichiren Shonen. Gusto. Gansho Joshu Kesu Josho Ji with her compassion towards us. Please place your hands and hold Kali Joini, Cosmic Realm Mudra. Through your mouth, lower your shoulders back. We will begin, or we will end with silent meditation in honor of the Buddha's. Jinxi. On the final night of the Buddha's awakening, he was tempted by Mara, the Buddhist personification of desire, what Christians would view as the devil. In fact, the story of the temptation of Christ by the devil is taken almost word for word from the temptations of Mara towards the Buddha Siddhartha. The final awakening for the Buddha came after a series of trials, of which Mara, fearful that someone would be able to break through this attachment to desire that allowed Mara to have the power over the minds of humans. He comes with a series of attacks to the Buddha. He attacks the concept of his physical mortality, which the Buddha is said to have had represented by a horde of demons who came to attack him and then fired arrows, but the Buddha sat with equanimity, realizing that birth and death are about the same thing, the same sides of the same coin, and those arrows supposedly turned to flowers that rained down upon him. Later, he was tempted by the daughters of Mara, desire for physical side and of our existence, whether it's sex, food, drugs, alcohol, relationships, whatever it may be, that hole that we can never seem to fill, that thing that makes both flawed and amazing. Right? It is that hole that makes us constantly push towards the next mountain, the next river, the next ocean to cross, is because we think, oh, maybe it's better over there. And this is something that we as human beings can harness, but it's also part of our difficulty, which is what the Buddha realized. And finally, the final temptation of Mara to the Buddha was towards the Buddha's own ego, where he said, okay, you're the Buddha. You are the thus come one. You have conquered all of these temptations and all of this illusion of mind and fear of death and the craving for birth and all of these things, but you're pretty amazing. But nobody's going to get it, and nobody can do what you did. So you should just hang out right here underneath this tree and just stay here for the rest of, until you die. Because they're not going to get it. Human beings are stupid, and they're selfish, and they're lazy. You know this. And at this point, in the mythology of the Buddha's enlightenment, Brahma comes down. In our context, as Western people, Brahma is considered the All-Father, or we could look at Brahma as God, or we could look at Brahma as Odin, or we could look at Brahma as Zeus. But basically, God comes down and says, please, Buddha, please share this awakening that you've had with other beings. Because it doesn't matter whether they're human beings or they're gods or they're spirits, all sentient beings, all thinking and feeling beings have attachments and have emotions and have fears and anger and ignorance. And if you can just teach them this, then maybe you can help all of us to achieve this. Because if there is a God, and human beings are created in the image of God, then God also is subject to the same quirks and foibles that we are, in the sense that we see even in the Bible that God has wrath and love, compassion, right? All of these things that we ourselves are trying to cool. So even the gods benefit from this. So the Buddha gets up. The final banishment of Mara is the realization that he has a duty to turn the wheel of the Dharma, to start the ball rolling, so to speak. Tell people how they can achieve the same thing. Because in the end, in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha says that Buddhists have only one thing on their minds at all times. How can I cause people to enter into the unsurpassed way and quickly become Buddhas? And that's the seminal difference. What we heard in the prayer of the day, the Sokun, was that the Buddha preached for 40 years. But it wasn't until the final 12 years of his life that he preached the Lotus Sutra. And why is that? Because he was tilling the soil and making it fertile for the seed to sprout for enlightenment. Initially, when the Buddha got up from underneath the tree and he went out, he knew that he had experienced something amazing. But the first person he came to just basically was just like, and walked off. And this bothered the Buddha. First person that comes up, they're like, what are you? Are you God? What are you? He's like, I'm a Tathagata. What's that? But thus come on. Okay. Guy walks off. He failed. The very first time out of the gate, the Buddha failed to even be able to help anybody. The guy's just like, whatever. You don't look like anybody else. And the Buddha realized, Buddhas look like everybody else. There's no difference. What you have attained is no different than before you had attained it. But you are seeing things as they are, people as they are. So then he has to think, like any good teacher, how do I teach people about this amazing teaching, this Dharma, this way, this method? He gives the Flower Garland Sutra, where he basically just blows people's minds. And it's like reading string theory and advanced physics. There are Buddhas within molecules, within atoms, within this, and everywhere there's an atom, there's a Buddha world. And people are like, whoa, this is a little much, don't you think, Buddha? Like, this is a little out there, man. So again, he fails. So he has to go back to the drawing board. So right there, he has failed twice. What kind of spiritual leader fails twice out of the gate? Third time's the charm. So the Buddha realizes he has to scaffold things for everyday people and gradually lead them to the truth. Otherwise, it's too much. It's too much all at one time. So he starts with the Four Noble Truths. All life is suffering. Or dissatisfaction. We don't have to look at it as this nasty thing of like, oh, I'm poked with sticks every single day. That's how I suffer. We're not. We live in a Western world, in a first world country. Our suffering is that person taking a long time to make my latte. Right? Right? So, but if we look at it as all life is dissatisfaction, which means that all life you constantly feel like could be a little better. Oh man, it'd be so much better if I had this. Man, if I was here, I'd be so much better. So the Buddha realized that it's this dissatisfaction that we all share, and it's always there, and we're always going to think that what we have isn't good enough, and what we don't have could be better. Then the second truth from knowing that all life is dissatisfaction is that there is a source of dissatisfaction, right? Which is craving, right? It's craving. It's wanting something we don't have, wanting something different. There is an origin to that craving, right?
And that origin is attaching to things beyond their time. To want something beyond its time, after its time, but still wanting something that you can't have. And then finally, that there is a way to cessate suffering, to sense of dissatisfaction, and that is through the Eightfold Noble Path. So what the Buddha realized was that desire is a really interesting thing. Desire is a tool that's incredibly important for us, but it's also incredibly detrimental to us. Right? Any tool is a weapon if you hold it right. Any medicine can be poison. So desire is necessary as a Buddhist for you to even want to attain enlightenment, which is the bodhicitta, which is the initial spark that we're trying to do, is just to inspire. That's all we really have to do, is inspire people towards thinking enlightenment. Oh, that might be a good idea. Have that idea of that initial spark. Well, what do you do with it? Nichiren Shonin says that you only through study and practice can Buddhism truly be useful. Otherwise, it's just a smoke in the ether. Good idea, but really hard to put into practice. So the Buddha put that into practice in the sense that he sat underneath the Bodhi tree. He had spent 6 years in austere training, manageable, until he realized, oh, I'm not any closer after being so harsh on myself than I was when I was incredibly rich and wealthy and do anything I wanted as a prince. I'm still equally as lost. So his realization was of the middle path, that there is a place in between the extremes that we can go. The extreme of desire lies on two ends of the spectrum. The extreme end of desire is trying to satisfy every one of your desires, which we can see all over the place causes a lot of people a lot of consternation, attempting to satisfy all their desires. They have to get a better job, they have to get more stuff, they have to get a better this or that, or more of this or more of that, or whatever. But then the other end of desire is extreme pushing away of desire, extreme denial. Oh, can't have that. No, I don't deserve that. That's bad for me. This is that. That's this. No. And we run away from desire. But either way, we're still ruled by desire. We're ruled by this idea that we need to either escape it or satisfy it. But what the Buddha found out was that there is no escaping desire. And there is no satisfying desire either. There is just sitting with desire and understanding that this too shall pass. That just because you want it doesn't mean it's good for you. Just because you can't have it doesn't mean you should have it. And even if you should have it, if you don't have it, well, you don't got it. So you might as well get over it. Because it's when we start making these discernments, this is good, that is bad, this is salty, this is sweet, I like salty, I don't like sweet, that we start creating divisions, which then create more desires and more things to have aversion to, or to have desire for. Right? So if I decide that this political type of person, I don't like that, and this political type of person, I like that, right? I've created a separation. Now there's not just sentient beings. Now there's those people and those people, and I associate with those people, but not these people, right? And that is not where it's at. Because in the end, that doesn't fulfill what all Buddhas are thinking about. How do I cause all, all thinking and feeling beings, sentient beings, to enter into the unsurpassed way, aspire to enlightenment, and quickly become Buddhas. And it's that quickly become Buddha part that's really freaky for people, right? Because we think that enlightenment involves us floating on a golden cloud and farting rainbows. Right? And it doesn't. It involves being here now. Being compassionate to everyone we meet. Treating everyone as if they are our child. Or our mother. Or our student. Or our teacher. Or our leader. To do. Right? And it doesn't matter if it's a person, it could be a bag of rice. if you treat that bag of rice with the respect necessary of every being that ever came into contact with it, all of the light, the sun, the energy that's stored within it, well, then you're not going to waste it. You're certainly going to have gratitude for it. Right? Because you're treating it as if you would treat your own child, right? And you love them. You wouldn't want to waste their potential. So if we treat everyone like that, that anything that we say to them could hinder their potential. Say to them could help their potential. So what the Buddha realized was that we have to own it. On his deathbed, he told his disciples, this is his final lesson. You are your own salvation. And this is frightening as heck. Because it's so much easier to appeal to a God to fix things, or a spirit. But when the Buddha says, you're a light unto yourself, that means it's your effort. And only your effort that's going to push you any farther towards this goal of enlightenment, which is not some other place like heaven. It's to see right here, right now, as the Pure Land, surrounded by potential Buddhas all around you. So we have to take responsibility to understand that we're our own salvation. You know, I can't see what you do when you're not here. I can't see if you practice. I can probably figure it out. I'm pretty good at this point. I can tell when you've been practicing and when you've been not. But the practice isn't the purpose. The practice is only so that you can actualize enlightenment now in this body, which just means to be here now, to act in a smooth and harmonious cause and effect manner, with the benefit of all beings as your primary focus, and the belief that all beings are capable of enlightenment and that it's your duty to help them achieve that. We say the 4 great vows of the Bodhisattva. Sentient beings are innumerable. I vow to save them all. Save is a loaded word in the West, right? But we could say help them all. Help them achieve their highest potential. Whatever you want to do. I'm not afraid of the word save, though, right? Because it saves them from their own ignorance, their own anger, right? Their own greed. So sentient beings are innumerable. I vow to save them all. My defilements, my attachments, my ego, my nonsense is inexhaustible. I vow to quench it all. The way of the Buddha, the Dharma, is the path sublime. I vow to attain the path sublime with this body until I attain Buddhahood. So these are things that we need to keep in mind on a daily basis, that we're living life to help other beings. And we didn't come into this life alone. We're not leaving alone in the sense that, you know, we have to have people help us at all phases. When we were born, there had to be doctors and or a midwife or somebody there, or at least our mother that could hold us when we were born. And when we die, there are people who will take care of our bodies when we're gone, when we're going through our transition of passing ourselves. You know, we don't do that even alone. So really think about this season, this December, that the whole purpose of all of this is shugyo, is austere training, but not for you. Not for you to achieve anything, but for you to help others achieve. And then because of that, you'll achieve your own. But it only comes through effort and practice. You cannot not practice. You have to practice. You know, whether it's sitting in meditation, whether it's chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, whether it's doing Shraddha, whether it's doing Gongyo, full services, yeah. Even if you're just chanting in your mind, even if when you get angry, that's when you go Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Or you're happy, whatever, but please practice. Because it's only through practice that you're going to have the patience and the gratitude for other beings. Otherwise, you're going to see them as separate individuals that are really frustrating and annoying and outside of yourself, and it's their fault. It's not my fault, and they're the problem, not me. But when you see that, like, we're all connected, then it is your problem. So let's chant together 3 times, and then we'll have lunch. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Thank you all very much. Put out the candles. We'll set out the tables for everyone who tuned in today. Thank you very much. We very much appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, we'll take a picture of everyone. We'll get the chairs and stuff first.
I have an interesting podcast I'm listening to.
Yeah.